Welcome back to the Canadian Real Estate Channel, guys. My name is Zack, Brittain with Phipps Real Estate, and this is Andrew Hines. Today, we are at Maple Ridge Family Campground. Whereabouts is this located, Andrew?
So we're about 3 hours north of Toronto here. We're about 20-30 minutes from Tobermory and the Grotto. Awesome. So kind of a nice central location and a lot of cool stuff.
Fantastic. So we're going to do a tour of the property, show off this amazing facility that Andrew's got his hands on. Going to go over everything that's included. So let's get into the tour.
Yeah, and you'd think, if you're just doing a tent, it's actually pretty cheap, right? Well, I mean, with the price of lumber and getting labor to build decks, it actually wasn't that cheap. We're probably into but by the time we furnished them, over $10,000 a tent.
Okay.
Between all the everything. Yeah. So there is an expense there, but of course, from a monetary standpoint, they do rent, and they're with a run-up, we could definitely increase our prices next year.
I actually kind of had an interesting idea. How often are people booking? So if somebody books, is it typically 1 night, 2 or 3?
2 night minimum, and I'd say that's like 90% of people do 2 nights.
Really?
Yeah.
But we come past the glamping, and then we have about 5-6 trailer spots, right, Andrew?
Yeah, on this ridge, I think we have actually more like 6 or 7.
Okay.
Yeah, and then we do have more coming down here that are serviced with sanitary connections.
These are the ones that are permanent.
These were the seasonals, yeah. So you'll see these with an S on the site numbers.
Okay. But this one's pretty big though too. We got a shed. This one looks like somebody spent some significant time here.
Yeah. So the story behind this is when we.
Hey everybody, Zack with Phipps Real Estate and the Canadian Real Estate Channel, and in this video we're going to go through the new property that Andrew Hines and his partners have purchased. Over 80 acres of land, an RV, trailer, and campsite park with glamping, short-term rentals, and a ton of information to get through. If you're looking to learn about creative real estate investments, short-term rentals, Airbnbs, glamping, and everything in between, this video is perfect for you. Going through the numbers, how they purchased it, how this differs from traditional real estate investments, and what they're planning on doing next, that and so much more. So let's get into the video. So we've done the tour of the park, guys. Now we want to get a better understanding of really what the buying process is like, everything that goes into it, from first idea to actually negotiating acquisition, and then we can kind of get into the nitty-gritty of what is involved in that entire process, because it's not like we're going out and buying a single family home here, right? So let's go into how we first had the idea of buying a campsite. I'm super curious. Did one of your partners just wake up one morning and be like, guys, we're gonna own a campsite, this is gonna be wicked?
Well, the real genesis of the idea was that we wanted hospitality, but we wanted scalable hospitality.
Okay.
And a single Airbnb unit isn't really scalable, right? If you just have a single house, you can only increase the income to what that house can generate. Maybe you can decorate it better, renovate it a bit, and maybe, in this area.
One house though.
Yeah, 1 unit, 1 house. Maybe you can get the income up to 100 grand a year or 120. I mean, that would probably be optimistic for a lot of rentals, but one of our partners, Jake, he had a cottage rental that he was getting about $45,000 to $50,000 a season on, and we looked at that and we just kind of broke it down to, okay, so if we had 70 sites, and when this campsite came around, what could we do if we could even generate a fraction of that per site? So we started thinking, what about Airbnb on a campground? What about glamping? But I mean, going back to the idea was, okay, so we could do hospitality, and we all wanted, well, for me specifically, I wanted to own land. I wanted to own a big parcel, and this being 90 acres when it came up, so I kind of blended the idea of I wanted land, and I wanted to do it in a way that could cash flow. I didn't want something that would just leach away at me and I'd have to pay it all the time.
You're not just parking capital.
Yeah, exactly. So now we've got the 90 acres plus something that I believe with a full year of run up we could have an extremely profitable business with.
So let's take a step back.
Yeah.
We have this general idea of how a vacation cottage rental will work. Did you already have experience in short-term rentals, Airbnbs?
I didn't, but on our ownership team we did.
Okay, so there were guys on your team.
Everyone, they had all done it. I was the only one that hadn't.
Okay, okay. So you already had a team that had experience with Airbnb and short-term rentals. You have this idea that you want land, but you also want something that has a few different options, it sounded like. how do you stumble upon something like this? Are you guys like actively looking? Do you have somebody in this area that like knew this area really well? Are you looking all over Ontario, all over Canada?
No, this area was specific.
Okay.
So we've spent a lot of time, my wife and I have been coming up, like she's much longer than I have, but we've been coming up to the Sauble Beach, Wyerton area.
So we have personal experience.
Yeah, and that's about 30-40 minutes from here. Okay. So we knew what cottages could generate here, and Carmen, who's going to be on the channel as well, she had a bunch of vacation rentals, and we knew they were crushing. She had some stuff that was earning $1,000 a night. So when we hear numbers like that, and we're looking at, you know, we bought this at a price point where we felt like if we could just get a handful of units that, you know, could generate $20,000, $30,000 a year, we could start putting together the bulk of what we need to cover our operating costs, and then we also have our camping business.
Okay, so we have people that are in the area, you have an idea of what Airbnbs can yield, like you're doing soft and hard research at the same time.
We weren't really specifically thinking Airbnb, it was just an idea, and then before I know it, I'm having all kinds of conversations with Jake, and he comes to me, he's like, hey, there's a campground that just listed, you know, just south of Tobermory, and we're like, well, campground, that sounds really management intensive.
That was your first reaction?
Yeah, like we know, like you're gonna have like a mom and pop kind of operation typically. They're typically not gonna run it super aggressive because they bought it, you know, back in the day where it didn't cost that much to buy something like that.
Absolutely.
And so you have to kind of reorganize the way you think about these things, and we knew we'd be hiring management, so we knew that we would have to blow the previous income of this park away in order to make it make sense. So,
and these are ideas you already have before you even like start looking at the numbers.
Like it was just like we thought glamping, we talked glamping, we'd looked at yurts, and we're like, holy crap, there are yurts earning $500 a night, $700 a night. Wow.
Which is crazy.
You know, if we just need a place to put them, and what better place than a campground that actually has a public bathroom, and no less one that has a really nice bathroom like this one. So it was like kind of like the stars aligned, and as I've gotten a little bit older, I've learned to trust my gut, and my gut did tell me this was going to be a lot of work, but working with the team that we have, I knew that it was something that we're a bunch of problem solvers. You know, we all have a different skill set, different experience, and we're all a bunch of problem solvers, and that's the really cool part.
Absolutely. And so you had some of the partners that already had firsthand experience, some family members that have familiarity with the area, and it honestly sounds like it kind of just happened right place, right time almost. I mean, I hate to say that in real estate, as somebody in real estate.
It almost was like it listed, and like within the first 5 days it was listed, we had an offer in on it. But it was initially just Jake and I were talking, okay, well maybe we'll do it together. And we're like, well, this could get big. Like we want to bring in another partner that has, you know, a little bit more handy, you know, experience. Like, so we thought of my friend Mike, who I've partnered with in the past, and we knew he'd be a hustler, find trailers for us, you know, flip things, do, you know, mechanically.
And this is coming together pretty quick. So
so we were thinking it. We talked to Mike, and you know, Mike was doing a bunch of things with another partner named Zack, and he's like, well, I'll do it if Zack's in. You know, I'm just, you know, out of respect to him. So that's how the four of us came together. And you know, it's funny, like Zack, like our team dynamic, like we all do something different, and it's all very effective for what this park needs.
And so you guys are essentially, we see this, you already have kind of similar idea in the back of your head, but we see it on market. So this is an on market deal. This is listed.
Market deal, yeah.
Okay.
It was listed. We tried to get it for less than ask, but we wanted our conditional due diligence period, and they weren't having it. So we offered full ask, and in our due diligence period, we did find some stuff that you know, maybe wouldn't be perfect in a market where things weren't just flying off the shelf. But in the market we were in November 2021, you know, you need to move quick, and you need to lock things up. So because of that, we did offer the full pop, and we can go through the process of what was needed before we firmed up.
Yeah, let's go through that right now. So the process of buying the campsite was, we see it on market. You know, one of your partners is a real estate agent, so he's going to be the one taking point on the actual negotiation. You guys are already talking with your team, seeing who's in, seeing who's out, kind of figuring out who's going to be bringing what, probably while you're viewing the property and negotiating the deal.
Because
this stuff could happen pretty quick.
So we're committed. We throw down a deposit. Now we're sorting out who's on the team.
What kind of deposit do you put on a property like this?
I think we had 25 initial, and then we had to throw down another 50 once we firmed up.
Okay. And what was it originally listed at?
It was listed at 1.5.
Okay. So 1.5, and you see it on market. How quickly from when you see it on market are you going to go view it? And how does that work? Because it's not like we're viewing a house.
We tied it up first.
Okay.
We didn't view it first because we were too far away.
Okay. And plus, none of your partners are living up here full time.
No one's here. Yeah, so we tied it up, and then immediately we had, I think we gave ourselves 30 days. So we were immediately contacting people to do the environmental assessment, immediately contacting an appraiser to do an appraisal, immediately contacting a private lender. We went private on this because obviously with a campground, you know, you're mostly just land. You can imagine it's going to be a little tight tougher to finance something like that, and it is a commercial process to finance it.
Very interesting. So we see it within 5 days of hitting the market. You don't even view it in person. We get it locked up under contract. What's the conditional period looking like? 2 weeks, 3 weeks, 4 weeks?
It was originally 30 days, and then we did go back and extend. There were a couple of reasons that on the seller's end that we had some ammunition to get them to extend.
Okay.
And I believe we got them to extend it another 30 days, which was enough for us to have our financing, our appraisal, everything lined up and ready to go.
Because even 30 days is pretty quick, not necessarily for fully financed private deals, but if you're going the commercial route, environmentals, appraisals, like especially
if we were going with a bank, you could never do it in 30 days, never. No. But I mean, that's not the age we're in. Like if we didn't do it, somebody else would have come in and just bought it cash. You know what I mean? Like there's going to be somebody, especially in that market. The market's different now, but when we got it, that wasn't really an option. So we can go back, but all the same, the financials would never have warranted a loan that would have covered what we got on this place. So going private, we were able to get far more money on this, and our appraisal came in at far more than what we bought it for. So we were able to be in for zero. What we did end up putting in money to go towards fixed assets and buying trailers and things like that. We all contributed a bit, but nothing like it would have been had we not, got those appraisals. Very cool.
So we're buying in November too, which is actually kind of hilarious. Like, I wonder what they were thinking by listing the property in the winter months.
Great question.
Motivated. Or the market was so hot, because this is November 2021.
Well, I think he wanted to finish his season. Obviously, like if you're an owner occupier, you want to go right to the end of operational season, because that's when you make your money, and sell it right after, because then you have this big dead season over the winter where you're not making any money. You don't want to carry that property, so that's why he would want to sell it then.
So we negotiated in November, extended the conditional period probably December, January. When are you guys closing on this?
We closed end of November, so I think we negotiated it must have been end of September.
Okay, very cool. So negotiated September. So you guys are closing on it and carrying it through the dead months. Was that a concern for you when you were negotiating?
Of course, yeah. I mean, really uncomfortable for all of us.
Because you guys all think, I want something that's producing cash flow. We're sitting on something dead here. We just dropped the
and it costs a lot of money. So we raised a bunch of extra. Between what we raised and also what we contributed, we had money to carry it. And then it was just, it was a weekly meetings. We're always talking to each other. What have we done to move this forward? And you just wouldn't believe the amount of moving parts there are into getting something like this up and running. It's not like just buying a house and putting a tenant in it. Like, it is an active business, which we've done our best to build a team out and create systems for. So this doesn't occupy my every day, but there are days where I'll handle phone calls for this. And it'll take a good part of my day. And
I mean, first 6 months up, right? Like,
but the goal is, as we get it more automated and more situated, we'll be less and less involved, and we're trending in that direction. And a big part of that is the team we already have, and of course we need to add to that.
Absolutely. So super interesting to kind of hear about a little bit of the buying process. More specifically, what were the biggest kind of differences or eye-openers for negotiating that type of process? Like, did your team member Jacob, who was negotiating the deal or taking point on that, did they have experience negotiating deals like this?
Yeah, Jake does a lot of commercial real estate, so this was up his alley. So I think that what really helped us is he was asking the previous owner for things that he didn't even think to have ready. So it took him a while to get the stuff to us, which allowed us to get a little bit more ammunition to get the extension.
Also very common in mom and pop shop operations.
Yeah, they don't really track things. Like, it took us forever to get actual numbers from them. We never really got anything like where we could say, this is reliably accurate. Like,
they don't have 5-year statements already? Are you kidding me?
It's like a one page on Microsoft Word with a number, a couple of numbers, and then a net profit at the bottom. I'm like, okay. Oh, by the way, we also had 40 grand in income from this. Okay. I can imagine, that's probably pretty standard in a mom and pop operation. And obviously we can't operate that way, and there was no way we would go to a commercial lender and get them to give us a loan based on that.
They'd laugh you out the door.
Yeah, it wasn't going to happen. Maybe with a credit union we could have done like a 50% loan to value and scaled up, but we didn't want to be coming in with that much money. So private was the right way, and then of course we got to keep driving revenue, and I see what we're onto. I see the potential, and I'm really excited at what we can do.
So the purchasing process, a little bit longer than a traditional deal. Since your team has a little bit of experience with commercial deals, we kind of knew what to already ask for up front, how to work with a mom and pop seller. You guys are negotiating directly with another agent, or is this directly from the sellers?
It was a listed agent.
Okay, so we're dealing with another professional. That's kind of your middleman. As you're working through that, the biggest differences were likely compared to, let's say, a residential purchase or like say a commercial plaza. I would assume the due diligence period. You're looking out for environmental. Are you guys doing site visits as well?
We did. Yeah, we did. While it was under condition, we did come up here and we walked the property and we saw what it was and what it needed. And Albert, the previous owner, was very helpful. Drove us around. told us everything, and he's been helpful after the fact too. Part of our agreement was that he would come in and show us the lay of the land and help us with the mechanicals of the facility.
Very cool. So that's something you guys negotiate up front.
Yeah.
So even before closing, he already knows he's obligated to help with specific items.
One of our biggest nervousness the biggest points of concern, we'll call it, was what about shutting off, blowing out all the lines? Like, how do we winterize this?
The simple logistics of actually running.
Like, we're just thinking about that. I'm like, I've never run a campground.
Yeah.
They're like, we can't have that. So the big thing was, let's be there. So we sent people to be there while he shut it off. Our new management had him here to turn it on.
Okay.
So they've seen everything. You know, he kind of.
So we're learning firsthand from the previous owner. How long did they own it for?
He owned it, I think, for like 7 years, and then before that, it was another group, and it's been around for like 27 years.
Very cool. So it's already a little bit established. Now, for people that are watching the video that maybe have a little bit of experience in real estate, or maybe they're building a portfolio, why would you go to, let's say, an investment like this in real estate, as opposed to, you know, maybe your flips or your duplexes or your larger multi-units or like a standard commercial plaza? Like, what was kind of the draw for you guys?
Like, I mean, in today's market, what can you get that's going to cost, like, how many units can you get for $1.5 million?
Depends on where you are.
Depends on where you are.
2, 3, 4, 5, 10, depends on where you're at.
Yeah. You know, like, and with 6 units, what's your cap? Like, maybe you can rent them for $2,500 a unit if you're really aggressive. Depends on the market you're in.
4 to 6, maybe.
Yeah. So I looked at that, and then I look at this and see that we have an opportunity to come into a parcel of land where I think we can do $1 million in sales here. I think we can do $1.5 million. It's a question of how do we refine what we're doing. Every year we can have a conversation. Okay, how do we improve income from here? Yeah. Every year there's an opportunity to improve income, and within the season there's an opportunity to improve income by utilizing each site at its highest and best use.
Yes.
So rather than just have it and leave it as an operational campground, which did okay for the previous owners, not at the price we paid it. So it had to do better than that.
Okay, and that was like very clear to you guys as soon as you're on site, as soon as you take that little bit of a deeper dive in the property, you're like, okay, the lights are on here.
Yeah, think about it, you know, we've got potential rezonings, potential land severances and sell off lots. Like, we have a whole bunch of extra land here. Potential, you know, maybe this is also zoned for mini putt. Maybe we run some mini putt here. I don't know.
Maple Ridge mini putt coming to you guys soon.
It used to be mini putt. There used to be mini putt here.
That's fantastic.
So, and then it's just okay, we have this trailer that can do 200. Now let's swap that out with one that can do 4, one that can do 5.
Okay.
Let's add in hot tubs, maybe. Let's add in saunas, which we have some here on site. They're not operational yet, but this is all part of our, you know, longer term plan. Is let's keep boosting the income. Let's keep finding a way to fire more at that top line.
Now, how did that kind of compare to your previous real estate strategy? Did your real estate investing strategy, for those who don't know,
scale? That's the thing. Like with the student rentals and even with the stuff I'm doing in Florida, like you could do so much, you know, like new construction builds or student rentals that you own, but the scaling, it's not that it can't scale, it scales slower. So with something like this, it's not that much work to take a trailer off the site and put another trailer on it.
But how long does it take you to build a new unit?
You know, that could take you a year, right? Like, the speed at which it can scale, I saw an opportunity for. And then, of course, in today's day and age when land is so scarce and hard to find, you know, owning and controlling 90 acres is pretty...
Just kind of seemed like my very least I have 90
For a long time, I've wanted to own a lot of land. And, you know, this kind of fell into that strategy. This worked well.
Was this the first big, like, parcel of this size for you guys?
Yeah, of course, yeah.
Very cool. Yeah. So we already had the idea, but a big thing, obviously, was, okay, we have something that's already operational. If we can refine it, okay, we're in the green. Now, if we add on top of it, it just seemed like it was a logical addition, whether it was more trailers, yurts for the glamping, more camping.
Oh yeah, I can imagine
just utilizing it better.
I mean, assuming bylaw would, you know, not harass us, like what about a tree house? Like, I mean, the opportunities, like now you can just get creative. Yeah. Now, like we can do proper yurts. Like we don't have that. I mean, we have to play within the bylaw the way it's written. Maybe we got to put some wheels on that so we can call it a trailer. Put some wheels on our deck.
Yeah. Well, I mean, as problem solvers.
Yeah, exactly. I really do think of us as problem solvers. Like we find ways to do things. So, you know, when we have our brainstorming sessions and our meetings, you know, we're talking, thinking out loud, and a lot of good ideas come up.
Yeah. So we have experience with value add projects. Yeah. We have experience with lots of different types of real estate, but this was just like, okay, we see not necessarily infinite, but a larger scale of different types of opportunities that you can have more control over. And instead of buying multiple properties and doing things, I can buy one and do multiple things on that property.
Right. And that's part of the reason why it would make sense to have so many partners involved. Is, you know,
well, you're only one guy.
It's not a fixed amount amount of income you can earn off this place. Like it's put our minds together, and the sum of the parts will be, you know, more than, you know, 4, right? Very cool.
Very cool. All right, before we finish up this segment here, guys, let's get into a little bit more of the financing of a property like this.
Sure.
For me, I experienced it, you know, primarily just residential space up to multi-units. You know, that differs from commercial, that differs from industrial, mixed use. How do you actually finance a purchase for a campsite?
So straight private money.
Straight private money, okay.
It was. I mean, we eventually will upgrade that financing and improve it. Probably end up with a credit union.
Why credit union? For those of that may not know.
They're a little bit more malleable. They're willing to look at things on a case-by-case basis. They will apply commercial lending procedure. And so they'll want to see our income. Yeah, they'll work with you. And I know, like a lot of aggressive real estate investors these days, they're getting it done with credit unions.
We have had very similar experiences with our own portfolio as well. As we're trying to scale, credit unions have become very good friends. So you guys obviously have relationships with private lenders. Was that something you had experience on, buying a property totally private, or was this like the first time you'd done?
Oh yeah. I mean, I've borrowed privately lots of times. We all have. Like we've all done quite a bit of real estate. So
if you want to scale in real estate,
privates, you know, and especially coming from the mortgage business myself, we did private financing. I've been around commercial financing and private financing for 10 plus years.
So going into that, you kind of knew that was going to be the only way to actually finance it.
Yeah, it doesn't scare us. I mean, obviously to a certain degree it scares everybody, because, you know, you look at that amount of money you're paying and you're like, oh, that kind of makes me uncomfortable. But we got to stay focused on what we can do, you know, what the opportunity is, and not get bogged down in what it costs.
So this is the first full season essentially, but you guys are really kind of getting open in June of 2020.
Yeah, it was more of a partial season. Like we upgraded our platforms. So much of this was, you know, platform upgrades to CampSpot versus the, you know, previous owner was doing the spreadsheet and email bookings for email money transfers. Like, you know, getting our merchant accounts set up, all that stuff. This all took time. We didn't get CampSpot launched until May 1. So we had a list of like 80 inquiries that didn't book with us.
And it's just mayhem trying to get everything up to speed for them. It's a short period of time.
It was insane. Like we weren't prepared, and no matter what, like when would be a good time to transition and buy a campground? Like you're not going to do it mid-season.
Why would somebody sell it? That's when
they wouldn't do it, right? So I mean, we just worked with the opportunity that we had, and it wasn't perfect, and this year won't be perfect. I don't know that we'll break even this year, but with what we've done and when we launched, I think that next year we can do some pretty great numbers.
That is very cool. So fully financed. You know, you put up a deposit like a typical purchase. Obviously, going into this process, you're like, okay, we know we're going to have to go private, but the strategy was very clear for you guys right off the bat. We want to move out of that space eventually.
Right. In working with a credit union, we'll be able to show them 1 year's numbers and at least have a discussion. Now, whether or not that gets it done, they might want to see 2 years numbers. If we have to continue.
But you guys already projected this out, saying we can sustain this.
Yeah, if we have to continue another year privately, we will.
That makes a ton of sense. Fantastic. So Andrew's just breaking down for us, guys, how we even get the idea to purchase a campsite first off, how we're finding it, kind of a little bit of the power team to help you negotiate and move the deal forward. Having a little bit of experience in that space, super helpful. Because I mean, you could just run into roadblocks, especially with mom and pop owners. It could really ruin a deal.
And we could have spent, you know, the 10 grand on the environmental and found out that there was a contaminant and we didn't want to buy it. Like that could have happened, right? Like when you buy commercial, you risk that. And you could spend the 3 grand on the appraisal and find out you're not going to buy it.
And that's part of the deal.
This is part, if you want to get into this stuff, you have to understand that you might lose a little bit on something.
And these are already things you and your team are pricing in before you even kind of really go down.
It's uncomfortable, but it's like, it is what it is.
That's part of the business.
And if you want to do a deal, and I think this was out of all of our comfort zones a bit, but again, being problem solvers, and we had faith in what we could all do together.
Yeah, I think a very important trait is, as a real estate investor, is actually just having that problem solver mindset. And if there's value in solving that problem, okay, then we can really start digging deeper. Very cool. So that kind of wraps up how we're finding and purchasing campsites. Now let's get into a little bit more topics about how we're going to be managing them.
Right, okay.
All right. So we fully financed this property privately, correct? You had your cash set aside for the deposits. How much did you guys end up putting down on it?
So our total all-in was between all of us.
Fantastic.
And then we ended up getting a mortgage for our full price.
Fantastic.
So less broker fees and lender fees. We had to come up with a balance. So our money in kind of made it so that, you know, we could close. And then I got a second mortgage on it a few months after closing, which was for.
How'd you manage that?
Based on the appraisal we got appraised it like right off the bat.
Wow.
Yeah, so.
Wow. Now I want to really discuss more on how we're managing the actual operations. It's not like we're just hiring a property manager or maybe a handyman to take care of everything for you. This is a business.
Yeah,
so
full-time employees. Something we've learned along the way is that